What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. This week, we are back to preview this weekend's UFC pay per view going down from Madison Square Garden. And just like always, the UFC is bringing a really stacked card to MSG this weekend. Good card, top to bottom, a really good pay per view card, and just a lot of intriguing, closely lined betting matchups here. We're looking forward to this weekend and looking forward to breaking it down with my man Ozzy. As always, how we doing this week, my man?
I'm back this week. Had a little, off week, last week. But I
No,
took a
no, you were
good.
here last week, bro.
I here last week. I was
Yeah,
in here the
yeah, it
week
was two
before
weeks
that.
ago.
Uh,
Yeah.
Either way, I've been recharging. I've been ready because obviously the card is in my backyard. Um, and I'm always, super excited. I usually go this one. I got a fucking it's potluck. I mean, it's whatever. Not going. I'll still watch the card. Not going. I watch it live. Not going. But I've always had a lot of success, honestly, on the UFC cards. First time we ever did a podcast was Masvidal versus Nate Diaz card, and amazing. And literally every card I've ever had for MSG, I'm pretty sure it went really, really well. And yeah, I really like all the matchups here, and I think it builds pretty well up to the main event, and a lot of competitive fights, intriguing overall, and definitely it seems like there's a lot of consensus, but there is like, line movement other ways. So I think that, there's a lot of great fights, and I think it'll be a good night of action for sure.
That's a good point. I think it was about 4 years ago, we talked about the 244, I think it was. Um, that was the
18,
first
yeah.
time we ever did a podcast back on the Martian MMA days. Now we're in
Russian
the
MMA
Martian and
days.
Ozzy days, you know? So, before we get into this week, though, we recap last week. It was a decent week for me, 1.5 units profit. The Minner and Shaw fight, fixed fight, we lost on that GTD there. Definitely should have, hedged out once I realized what the fuck was going on. And Candelario lost as well. But, Dawson came through. Ulan Bekov finished. Bautista sub. And I threw a little late bet on Rodriguez Lemos to start round three, which cashed by the skin of my teeth a little bit there. Obviously, with that fight finishing, just a minute in around three. So happy to take the small profit there. What about you, Ozzy?
On just over 2.5. Just that card was so forgettable. Like I didn't even watch it, other than the Grand Dawson fight. 'Cause that's my boy. But that card was so forgettable that I forgot that I even did a podcast for it last week, which is hilarious. Um, but yeah, it was just like kind of like a weird that card, and then next week's card. Next week's card is really trash. I might have to take a break on that one too. Um, but yeah, maybe I should have just went fucking 5 units on Grant, bro. Like I said, I'm like Grant Dawson is not losing to Marco Madsen. Like I just did not see how it was possible. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I was kind of looking forward more to this card. But let's finish. Let's try to finish this year out strong. Hasn't been strong overall. Definitely a big dip. But we'll keep chopping away. We got some good Bellator cards coming up. A lot of title fights, 5 rounders, and in the lower weight classes, which I think we'll do good on. And yeah, let's get after it this week though.
Yeah, I mean, Ozzy was banging that drum for Grant Dawson for I think 5 years almost. I remember back in the day, Ozzy, we were tweeting back and forth about how I was saying like Grant Dawson got lucky to end up on top of Trizano and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Trizano would beat
yeah,
him in a rematch.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I have to admit that that was probably a little off,
What I was
a
telling you,
little
bro. I'm
off
like,
spec,
yo,
but
come on, bro. There's no way this guy's gonna like that fight wasn't gonna get on the ground. Like this guy's an end. Like he hasn't even lost. Like he doesn't lose. Does not lose.
yeah. I
Just
slowly
clearly
did
top tier.
gain I slowly did gain some confidence and respect for him over the past few fights and did, bet him on his past 2, but the dude's a fucking animal, really one of the best grapplers in all the UFC right now. And, he's durable on the feet, he knows how to shoot takedowns at the right times, he can chain takedowns together, and once he gets on top, I mean, like you like to say, he is an absolute truck, and this dude is gonna be a hard fight for pretty much everyone in the lightweight division.
Absolutely, everyone. I feel like identifying these prospects, like you're seeing it, people that are cashing nice on Kyle Bahayo, right? Every one of his fights has been kind of like minus 200, 180. I don't remember all of them, but they've all been very bettable. Even the Jesse Murray fight, which in hindsight is insane. But identifying some of these really, really top prospects where they're getting some competitive, like look at Johnny Munoz Jr. last week. identifying him, obviously he lost the fight, but identifying these guys and then trying to see where you could kind of press the button and keep attacking is, I think, a really really good spot where you're getting, especially when you just see a guy that's clear top tier like Grant and clearly not top tier like Marco Madsen. I think last week it was a lot of fights like that though, like Tagir, Bautista, Munoz, even Jake Hadley, I guess, for the Brits. The Brits have faith in fighters until they, are cut. But yeah, definitely a good thing. So looking for my next Grant Dawson. I'm on the search. So see where he comes from.
It's a young Japanese man by the name of Tatsuro
I
Taira. That's
That was another one. We were on that one where it's really good. Like these prospects, dude. A lot of times, like it's almost like Bellator. You see how like Bellator or whatever, how they match them up. UFC, they don't match them up like that. Like they're obvious squash matches. But a lot of times they end up being because the other guy, the guy's just so good. You know what I mean? Like there's like a very big delineation point between when you're like a top 25 guy and then when you're like a clear top 15, top 10 guy. I think there's a lot of value to be had.
Yep, I feel that. And last week, like you were saying, a lot of kind of wide matchups. This week, one fight in the -300 range, one fight in the 400 range. Everything else is pretty closely lined here. We're looking at 65%, 70% or less for about 12 of these fights. So a lot of closely lined fights that are best to be made, and there are a lot of good matchups. I mean, just intriguing fights, top to bottom. I really think every one of these fights is like actually intriguing. I'm looking forward to it. So
Yeah,
really good card from the
I
UFC.
just hope everyone makes weight.
That's true. Yeah. Last week was a rough one for that. But we'll start things off. Light heavyweight division. Nicolau Negumereanu taking on Carlos Ulberg. The odds for this one: Ulberg -130, Negumereanu +110. So I've been thinking about this fight a lot this week, and I have a good allegiance to Nicolau. He's been a good money train so far in the UFC. And I've been a little more skeptical of Ulberg, but I think that I got to kind of get away from my biases here a little bit because Negumereanu, he's got a huge head, right? He's not fast. He doesn't have good defense, and Ulberg is going to land straight punches and all types of strikes on Nicolau while he's fresh. And I think Nicolau really has to put a pressure on Ulberg and slow him down late in the fight and eventually get the fight to the floor. I just don't really see the fight favoring Nicolau as long as the fight is standing. So if you're confident in Nicolau to wrestle and you're confident in his wrestling ability, I could see backing him here. But there are times where versus Kennedy, he's chilling at range. He's not really pushing a pace. He did attempt to take down right away against Ihor in his last fight, but it took him 90 seconds to get Ihor down, and he really had to drag that one out. So I'm interested to see this one, how it's going to play out. If Nicolau comes out wrestling from round one, he has a real good shot to win. But if he comes out trying to strike and he gives Ulberg that distance, Ulberg in the big cage is gonna, style on him on the feet. So it's a pretty accurate line. I do have Ulberg here as a slight favorite, and I honestly think I think it might be a pass for me. I'm just going back and forth on this one all week, and I can't pick an official side. So what are you thinking here?
Yeah, it's a good fight to start off the card. Two guys that picking up wins in the UFC. Obviously, I don't think Manu has lost yet. Or did he? I don't know. He's like 13-1. He's
Safarov, yeah, yeah.
Safarov. So yeah, so he's got double the fights of Ulberg. And he comes in like the last fight against Ihor. I thought it was pretty impressive because I just like seeing when guys have like a lot of intent on their strikes. Like I don't like this pitter patter, like dudes throwing bullshit ass jabs that aren't hurting anybody. Like let's go. Like you if you are in there for 15 minutes, not that long of a time. Like you gotta make these strikes count. Olberg, I think he's gonna be on moving backwards, which I think is the thing that I mean he could potentially be on the front foot like he was against Kennedy early, but I think there's some potential for Nergomanu just with his style and how he like the energy that he brings in to be very much in the front foot and maybe be able to get the clinch game going quicker than expected. I know, we were talking and in the Kennedy fight he was, complacent in the second round to be, at range. But Kennedy, I mean, he's got 4 more inches of reach or 7 more inches of reach, I think, than even Olberg has. And Negrobono has sneaky reach. He actually has a reach advantage here against Olberg. And you saw in the Tafon fight, Olberg kind of tentative, doesn't really throw too many power strikes out early. So we'll see. I think Nergomanu could get some stuff going here. I think I will also pass on it because Ulberg does have that power, and it's not easy to find. It's not hard to find. Nick, on the chin. So I do think Ulberg should be the favorite, but I don't think there's huge value on this line just because Ulberg hasn't fought well too much over 3 rounds. Um, Grappling is suspect a
Never
bit.
been on his back.
Yeah, grappling is suspect. You haven't seen him on his back. And Nergomanu, from what my understanding, he's pretty solid in that training room over at Extreme Couture. Like he's working hard. He's definitely improving. I think he's been there now, maybe 10 months or a year. So good fight to start off the night. I think I'll pass unless we get a big Nergumanu number, but maybe an interesting live bet fight as well.
I agree.
And,
Great
and
fight to start the card.
and one thing too to note, like the prop market is consistent all over. Between some of the books, the U.S. books and offshores, big difference all over the place. Like they got doesn't go the distance at one offshore -175. U.S. books -300. Ulberg decision +420. Pretty. I think that's a pretty decent line. I think overall. But yeah, overall probably gonna be a pass for me. But I kind of lean Nergomanu as this line climbs if it
Mm.
climbs.
I'm leaning Oldberg here. But I think it's not going to be a bet. But yeah, great fight to start off the card. Another great fight next in the bantamweight division. Montel-Jackson taking on Julio Arce-Jackson -200. Arce +170. Arce will have the New York crowd behind him in this matchup. This will be a big one. Great fight. Interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
Love this fight. Arce definitely, asked to be on this card here. And I think this is a solid fight. This is Southpaw versus Southpaw here. Montel, obviously very, very talented, has not been active overall though in the last few years. Obviously he came in, all the talk was how big the guy's hands were and how he was like an Olympic hopeful, Greco-Roman and all this stuff. Hasn't translated amazing overall. Obviously, in all his fights, he has great moments. Like, he's either clobbering you with a punch, he's hitting some great takedowns, like dropping you. The guy has some sort of success in every fight thus far. But a little bit still improving. Um, last fight against JP Buys, where Buys actually took him down. He's a 125er. Was able to take a lot of the shots. Arce is getting a little up there in age, but the guy is so crafty. Is able to fight on the back foot. You saw that against Daniel Santos, how he was able to control range, and control the fight a bit versus a guy who we saw has a pretty good pressure game against Castaneda, unfortunately. But yeah, Arce, former Golden Gloves boxer champion, obviously whatever, but his boxing's obviously good. He's got good jujitsu. His ground game is very good. But I'm skeptical. Actually, both guys, weight wise and conditioning wise, maybe later. I trust Arce, conditioning overall. But I like Arce, in this fight a bit. Obviously, I do think Montel should be the rightful favorite. But my issue is I don't know if he's going to be able to go to the wrestling as much as he has in these other fights. Just because Arce, former 145er, jiu-jitsu black belt, and very very good with the transitions on the ground. So I kind of like Arce here. I actually like Arce ITD as well. Maybe split it a
Mm.
little bit just to get a little bit more value out of this. Just because I think Montel, he's gonna have some moments. He might stun Arce, like he might even stun Arce. Like a lot could happen in this fight where I think either Montel could slow down and Arce, has a good gas tank to push, and he does step on the pedal if he has someone hurt. You saw in that Peter Pettis fight. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but could be a little similar striking style to Montel. Some Muay Thai, throws elbows and a lot of knees and kicks and stuff. Arce was able to walk him down as the fight went on. So, I think mixing those two, solid. But yeah, I'm interested in this fight. I think it should be a very good one.
They got no scorecards too at +200 for Arce, which is way off in my opinion. Like the best guys that Jackson has finished is Brian Kelleher. And like he went to decision with Sukumtat and JP Buys and somebody else who's not good as well. Felipe Colares. Like come on, man, this guy's not a big finisher. I mean, he might catch you with some big shots, but like once he has you hurt, the JP Vice fight proved that he's not good at finding that finish. So him being -285 in the no scorecards market is pretty off. And I agree. The ITD plus 550 for Arce seems a bit off too because I think that Arce could hurt him on the feet. I truthfully believe Arce is the better striker. And Jackson, shooting his takedowns, he doesn't come, like you said, Greco-Roman. He's not like exactly coming from a freestyle background, so he doesn't have the most perfect takedown attempt. So I could see him maybe leaving his neck out there and getting caught of some sort too. So I think Arce could finish him either way in this fight, and I think he's the money line side. I mean, unless we're really discounting Jackson's wrestling, and he might just be able to body him in the grappling, use his size advantage, and out wrestle Arce here. That's the only way I see him. The striking is gonna look competitive, probably gonna look like Arce is the favorite because I mean this guy's a really good striker. We saw how good and dangerous of a guy Daniel Santos was in that last fight versus Castaneda. Castaneda had trouble, putting the finishing touches on that win. Arce didn't have trouble at all, man. He pitched a shutout, 30-27, great win for Arce there in his last fight. And Arce is pretty good against fellow southpaws as well. So I think this line is off. I think Arce is the side. I'll be on him for I'd say about a unit. And that's going to move us along. Next fight, another Tiger Showman guy, another New York guy, Mike Trizano taking on Sungwoo Choi in this one. Choi is the favorite, minus 162. Trizano plus 142. So I like Trizano, but man, I think that he really has trouble putting it all together and putting in good performances in the UFC because he's a skilled fighter on the feet. He's not a bad grappler overall as well. It's just he lacks a little bit of intensity and aggression in some of these fights, and that's why he's struggled to pick up some wins. And I think that this is just a bad matchup for him with Choi because Trizano, I don't think he's going to have much success grappling here. Choi is not the best grappler, but he's big. He, I just think will be a little difficult to take down. He's just not a bad grappler, but he's fought some tough guys like obviously Evloev and stuff who have taken him down. Gavin Tucker out grappled him. But I don't think Trizano's wrestling is that much of a threat, so this fight should stay on the feet. And I think the Choi is just a more dangerous striker of the two for one. I think he throws a little bit more volume. And I'm watching this fight. Trizano got clipped with the left hook from Almeida twice in their fight. Got dropped in the second and third round. Eventually finished with that left hook. And Choi's got a nasty left hook. He was able to put Erosa out with that left hook, and I just think that these guys are probably gonna trade in the pocket with one another. And we saw Choi, eat some bombs from Bao. He did get dropped, he got hurt, but he had good recoverability. He was able to, get stunned and later he got his wits back about him and he's right back to fighting. So I just think that the durability and the striking favor Choi here, and I don't give Trizano a big grappling edge here. So I think Choi is good juice. I bet him for 1.55 units, and I think he's going to pick up the victory. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't bet on this fight. I think if I'm trying to find a prop here, but these aren't like this kind of fight. I don't love betting it too much. Where like a fight where probably stays up on the feet for the most part. And I feel these guys are kind of evenish on the feet in terms of like how they strike. Like Choi definitely has more power, but I think overall like shot selection, both of them gonna cater towards a close fight or closer fight. If like Trizano, which I don't actually, is what I'm saying. Like, if I'm just saying what side I like, I think I would. I wouldn't bet Trizano unless I got like, maybe like plus 175, 180. So that would mean I should be on Choi, but I just something about Choi sometimes with like his tactics in there and like how he kind of he doesn't really push the fight all that much, and that's why I think this fight going the distance might be the best side. I know obviously Trizano got knocked out, whatever, but Choi's not that great of a finisher. I feel like he just there's something off with the guy. I don't really like him. Um, but I think Trizano submission 14-1 or whatever you could get. Obviously higher than that would be preferred. I think he he has some submission game. So maybe you do a little sprinkle on that if you're betting him on the money line, just because that's a big prop there. But I think I'm gonna pass in this fight. But if I had to make a bet, I would bet Choi.
All right, so that's going to move us along to the next fight, which is women's fight, one of two women's fights on the card. Strawweight division, Carolina Kowalkiewicz versus Silvana Gomez Juarez. The odds for this one Kind of back and forth all week. KK minus 115. SGW or SGJ minus 105. We got some names in this one. Silvana Gomez-Juarez, Carolina Kovacevic. Kind of a binary matchup. You can go first on this one.
This fight I do have a bet on, and I bet Carolina Kowalkiewicz minus 105. And it's just overall Carolina. I think last performance, obviously, I think was solid. Overall, she's just like a pretty steady girl, and I think that the style that she has in terms of the striking is going to be able to either keep her a little bit of safe from Silvana, throwing those hammers out, and bringing those hammers with her, obviously, in the first round. But I think once KK is able to implement some stuff like, or Silvana slows down a little bit, because she's a big girl for 115. She used to fight at 125. Obviously, she's got some extra weight that she carries around as well. Not easy for her to make 115. And I think once KK could get inside and use the clinch to her advantage, throwing the knees, pulling on the head, maybe, get into a double leg or, a takedown at some point. I think she's just a way better grappler on the ground, got great cardio as well. I think we remember her, that ass whooping that Yan Shannon put on her. But overall, KK is a pretty solid fighter for the female division. Well-rounded enough, I think, to be able to avoid some of these big strikes that Silvana throws. Like, she doesn't have Nali Yang kind of defense or even um your girl Vanessa Demopoulos. Like she stays a bit safer on the feet, I think, than either of those two girls. So I think it'll be harder for Silvana to work that power punching game in. I don't trust her over 3 rounds. I do trust Karolina Kowalkiewicz more. And it's a women's MMA fight, so I'm expecting some ground action, and I think Carolina will have a big advantage there. So Carolina, not a huge bet, but I like her at the minus 105 number.
Yeah, I mean, not much to add. You hit all the points. I agree completely. I mean, this fight is going to be competitive on the feet. You got to think Gomez has the power edge, but still, there's hours more footage of Carolina actually striking with women. She's good in the clinch, and I think all the grappling upside here really lies with her. And with her winning her last fight via grappling, I think we'll probably see this fight go to the floor and see Carolina looking good. So I think people are just overreacting to the Juarez knockout over, Liang, who sucks. And I think, yeah,
Yang might be,
Carolina
like you
just,
said, the worst fighter they ever had in the
yeah,
UFC.
top, top, top 10 worst fighters ever. I mean, just a complete role player. And, I feel bad for the woman, honestly. I really feel like she didn't know what she was getting into. Like, they were like, hey, let's go to America for a martial arts competition. And she was just like, wait, it's in a cage.
She
And
thought
then
she was
next thing
doing
you know,
katas. She thought she was doing katas.
yeah, like she did not consent to that. So, um, for Na Liang. But yeah, Carolina will be the side in this one. Next fight, another New York hometown fighter, Matt Frevola, the steamroller, taking on Ottoman Azaitar, who's coming off a long layoff. Azaitar is the favorite, minus 135. Frevola plus 115. So in the past just 24 hours, big action coming in on Azaitar. Seems to be a popular favorite as of late. And we'll see where this line goes. See, there could be that Bahrain money continuing to pour in on Ottoman. You guys know how it is in Bahrain. I think that's where this guy's from. No, he's from Morocco, but whatever. Um,
Friends with the
so
king. He's friends with the king.
exactly. Yeah, some princes, kings, oligarchs, they're all throwing their action down on Bet Online for sure. But another very binary matchup, right? You got Ottoman, who is the more powerful puncher, who is, probably knockout or bust in this fight. And then Frevola, who is, a wrestler who's gonna really have this fight in his favor when the fight's on the floor. Now, I think Frevola can have some success standing. It's not unfathomable to imagine Frivola landed some own big punches. I mean, the guy loves trading in the pocket. He's decent offensively. He's just not good defensively, and then he just gets chaotic in there, man. It's like whenever the pace of the fight goes up, he just loses a lot of composure. You saw that against that bum Geraldo Valdez. I mean, Frivola
That
was
fight was
whooping his
fucking
ass, but
sick.
it, just the ass whooping of the year almost. I mean, this referee is like this guy got dropped 5 times in 1 round,
That
and
fight was so
Frivola's
good.
pounding him with ground and pound after the 5th knockdown, and the ref's like, "Move,
It's
fighter!"
my
Like,
favorite
bro, the
fight.
fight is over. The fight is over. Um, so
He's
eh,
back against my boy Natan soon.
I know that's gonna be an electric matchup. Um, But, like, this one seems like, how urgently will Frevola wrestle? If he comes out and shoots a takedown 30 seconds in, he's probably gonna win the fight and look like a big favorite. If he comes out and stands in the pocket and trades with Ottoman, he's probably gonna get hurt and knocked out. So, you might be better off waiting to live bet Frevola here, but there's also a possibility, like I was just saying, he might take him down in 30 seconds and look like the favorites. If you have faith in Frevola to wrestle, to use, his IQ to put this fight in his favor, you know, he's a good dog, and I truthfully believe he will. I think he will wrestle. I don't think he's gonna come out, I he has come out swinging in his some of his recent fights, like the Valdez fight, but he knows this is a different matchup. He knows Ottoman's a dangerous striker. This fight was booked, way, way back in January of 2021, so he knows what this guy brings to the table, and I think he'll come in with his wrestling shoes, and he'll show, an All-American wrestling clinic in New York, so hopefully the steamroller pulls it off.
You saying Ottoman is just taking me back to when I was like 15 in fucking world history class. But
The Empire, right.
that's right. EP son, guns, germs, and steel. Um, only book that I read that year. So I don't know shit about Ottoman. Nothing. Like, I mean, this guy, there's some tape on him, obviously, but the thing is, like, I don't know what the hell this guy's been up to. And he's just so weird. Like, I feel like he's not crazy bad because I watched a few of his fights and, like, yeah, like you said, he got taken down a few times. I think we were talking about it. But Matt Frevola, he's very well rounded. He's very well rounded. If he had any composure at all, he would win a lot more fights. But, like, some guys say that he's got, like, the guy's got the striking, the power of Ngannou, the fucking wrestling of Gamrot, and the jujitsu of fucking, Matt Serra black belt, whatever. So you should be a pretty good fighter, right? But like you said, no composure sometimes just gets cut. But the thing is, like, I think people are like thinking so much about the Terrence McKinney knockout when it's like, bro, like, what do you do? Like, it's a 7-second fight. Like, you might as well not even pay attention to it. But otherwise than that, like, the guy's been pretty solid in his UFC career. He's definitely wrestled multiple times. Like, he, shot a ton of takedowns on Turner and Pena. He brawled a little too much with Lando and Polo Reyes. But I think here he should. I mean, it's getting to this plus money. It's the thing. I was not gonna bet this guy as a favorite. Even as a small dog, like a even money. But if we're getting the plus 120 close now, like, even if Ottman puts him out, bro, like, I don't even feel that bad about it because, yeah, Ottman hits hard, but if Matt Frevola has any guard and, is able to just extend the fight and make this guy throw more power punches than maybe he expects or, he's ever done, how does this guy not, start turning into a pretty big favorite here? Submission game I think is pretty solid here, and I am 80% sure that he will grapple here intently, like with intent, not like, oh, shoot a few. No, no, no. I think he's gonna shoot a takedown, get his hands on him. We're gonna see some, hanging in the clinch or back clinch or something like that. So I'll take a little small shot on Favola. I think I think both these guys could drop each other for sure. Like Matt Favola, the thing is, like, he just sometimes just throws that right hand without too much defense on the left hand side. I don't think Ottman has like shot select. This I just go back to it. The guy could have power, but the shot selection, like, look how he knocks out Common Worthy, dude. Like, is that looking like a high level striker to you? He's gonna fight Matt Favola all the time? I don't think so. So I'll take that small shot on Matt Favola. Dog money.
And just adds a few more things is Ottoman has fought 3 times in 5 years, and those fights totaled 5.5 minutes. So he hasn't fought past round 1 in 5 years, and he only has 5 minutes in the cage over 5 years. So if you're talking about the experience advantage, it's Frevola. The activity advantage, Frevola. The cardio, wrestling advantage, Frevola. It's really striking and power are the only 2 advantages for Ottoman here, and I really don't know if that's good enough to put him as a
Yeah.
favorite.
Favola has great cardio. And if you remember, Azaitar's brother, cardio died against MAB in like
Death.
round 3.
Yep.
Like, completely dead. And Ottman, it's not like he's been at with the Khabib guys and stuff like that. He's been training at the PI, so Vegas. So let's go for Vola. Let's get this one.
All right, next fight's in the middleweight division. We got Andre Petroski taking on Wellington-Turman. Odds for this one, Petroski -200, Turman +170. It's interesting matchup here. Is it your I
It's
think
my
it's your
turn.
turn to
Yeah,
start.
my turn. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think this is a good matchup too. I didn't really expect this one. Petrovsky, good step up here. But seeing a 210 next to him, given like some of the faults that I see in his game, is just like a little, bewildering to me. Looking at Turman though, like Turman, that fight against uh Serkinov, it's the fact that he was just, okay with laying on his back and some of the grappling positions he was giving up, I didn't love. So I think this fight is probably going to have to be one where, I do think that Petrovsky is probably going to get to a clinch position or a takedown at some point. So I think this will be more of an attritional fight where, Turman has to, obviously work from these grappling positions and overall. But maybe, weather some kind of storm from Petrovsky. Petrovsky KO, they got it priced really, really low. I don't think that Turman has fought many southpaws, other than maybe Bruno Silva. I think maybe Bruno Silva's a southpaw. He switches. I think he's back and forth. But I don't think it's gonna matter that much. I do like that he is training over there with Glover. He's got Dominic Reyes, a southpaw, to spar with there. So, Petrovsky does not have really accurate punches though. He kind of, a lot of the movements are really big and I think easy to see. But obviously Turman is pretty slow, so I don't know if he's gonna be able to counter him. But also Turman's got 3 times the fights, or 2.5 times the fights as Petrovsky. Petrovsky's cardios look bad. So I got Turman here. I think this guy's pretty solid. Plus 170 for him. He's not the best fighter in the world, but he's aware of the submission game. Got some submission game of himself. But I just think that he's gonna have to fight for these underhooks, stay tight in there. Don't go for too many offensive maneuvers. Look to kind of, defend a little bit more when Petrovsky is diving on these single legs, which I think will happen. And yeah, maybe a repeat of the Aaron Jeffrey fight. I think is a good plan for Turman here. Come out, club him with a few shots. It's the same thing as Amisha. Sorry, I mean honestly, Petrovsky and Serkinov, other than the crazy dip in success Serkinov has had, kind of similar fight. I would kind of put them somewhat similar. So both southpaw
Aaron
too.
Jeffrey,
No,
he didn't fight Aaron Jeffrey.
Petrovsky, yes, he did.
Oh, Petroski. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I understand.
I said like, yeah,
I
I
thought
mean like Herman beating him like Jeffrey did. But like I said, like, would you agree that Misha and Petrovsky are actually kind of similar?
yes, very.
Yeah, I think it's a good fight for Turma.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on Turman here, and Petroski's a Philadelphia guy, but the Marquez MMA bubble is bursting. We're in the midst of it bursting, where
So just a little stutter step. They just got to get some adjustment. Like I said, bro,
they
delineation.
need to bring me in there. Man. They need to
Delineation
bring me in there.
between
Is what they need.
unranked fights, and once again in the top 15, top 10, man, this shit is tough. It's very difficult. So little stutter step.
Yeah,
Bring the Martian in. That's bringing me in by whatever. I don't know.
I want them. I want them to succeed, and I really think I have the tools to bring them to the next level. But in this matchup, I'm thinking if this fight happened 1 year ago, I'm pretty sure Turman would be like a pretty significant
250 might
favorite.
be 250 minus 250.
Yeah, and now Andre has looked good over the past year, but I think some of his wins, specifically the Gilmore and the wins, he finished both guys in round three, but those wins were very flawed. He really showed a ton of flaws in those fights, and we really don't know if he fixed them because the Maximal fight was 60 seconds. He choked him out right away. But I mean, Petroski, his striking, he's loading up on every strike. Hand left doesn't really have many range finders. He kind of just wings punches, and they were connected on Hu Yao Zong. But I think the Turman has a really good chance at winning the striking here. And I just see the grappling being really competitive, man. Both these guys like hitting offensive takedowns and out grappling guys, and I think that they could hit a bit of a wall against one another. And then we're gonna see maybe both guys on bottom. We're gonna see some back and forth exchanges. Don't love how Turman can get high on the back. He goes for back takes a little too much, and then he gets too high. He doesn't know when to abandon them, and then he ends on his back. So that's not good. He did lose round one to Serkunov, and he got put on bottom again in round two, but then he was able to snatch that armbar. So I don't love how Turman can be put on bottom. I think he probably is the inferior wrestler here. But I think that he's got, comparable jiu-jitsu skill. I think he's got the better striking. He's much more experienced. He's training at a really good camp with Glover and Reyes and Pereira there. and he's coming off a few wins, got good momentum. I think Turman's the side here, 170. I'll be on him for at least a unit, I'd say. And I haven't really looked at props. I haven't mentioned too many props for this card, but I mean the
Petrovsky's the
Petroski
same line here against Turman than he was against who, bro?
who exactly, yeah. And
And he
it's
was plus
like,
220 against Aaron Jeffrey in 2020. Just to go back on what you said, like for a year back,
yeah, the market's like doing flip flops on him. Like this dude is plus 350 versus fucking Nick Maximov, and now like the market really is just they're hot and cold on Petro here. So, um, next fight is going to be in another women's fight. Oh, it's actually the second of three women's fights. I was mistaken earlier. Aaron Blanchfield taking on Molly McCann. Biggest favorite on the card. Aaron Blanchfield minus 400. McCann plus 300. So I was originally a big fan of Aaron, but I've grown skeptical of her lately. She's kind of underdeveloped in some of her areas where she's weak and she's not really working on them too much. I think her striking, her footwork, and her wrestling all need major work. And she's fantastic on top, right? She's a really good top position grappler. She's got really good submissions, and that will win her a lot of fights in the women's divisions. But she's really got to work on finding a way to get to the fight to the floor more comfortably because she's just awkward and choppy in there. She just doesn't have good flow to her striking, and that means that she's not going to have good flow to her takedowns. Um, but she's fighting McCann, who is pretty atrocious on the mat. So, this fight is simple. When the fight's on the feet, it's going to be pretty good for McCann. When the fight's on the floor, it's going to be really awful for McCann. And she's probably going to be in danger of being submitted on the floor or, mounted and ground and pound TKO'd at any point. If Aaron's on top, she could easily finish with, only 30, 60 seconds worth of time. And, Blanchfield's takedowns aren't good. She's really bad at completing takedowns against the cage. So once her opponents get their back to the cage, Aaron just cannot find a way to get the fight down to the floor. She really thrives hitting takedowns in open space, and she's got a little good judo game behind her as well. And McCann is really susceptible to those judo throws. She'll like stuff takedowns and she'll be so preoccupied on the top half of the body that she doesn't realize that her opponents are, going to throw her with a judo throw. And I truthfully think that's how the fight gets to the floor. Is Aaron's going to fail a traditional takedown, a wrestling takedown, and then she's going to hit a judo throw and she's going to get on top here. She did that versus Maverick, I think, once or twice. So, now on the feet, I mean, Molly's going to win. She's going to be dangerous. She's may even hurt Aaron at some point, but the fight is pretty inevitable to end up on the floor in some sloppy exchange at one point. So Molly is the pre-fight value side, but man, I just can't see her this one. And one last point, non-matchup related, but like, what the fuck is the UFC doing? They got Molly McCann, who's got momentum, knocking women out with spinning elbows, got the bar stool behind her. They were giving her good matchups in England, and now once she's got all this momentum, they're throwing her in Aaron's backyard and putting her against a terrible matchup. It really makes no sense. So what about you, Ozzy? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'm not really that interested in this fight. I agree with you. A little bit peculiar matchmaking overall. I think they probably should. But the thing is with Molly, like, who are you gonna really give her? Like, obviously Mavericks calling for the fight. Whatever, I don't care. I'm not showing Shelby. But I think Molly's been improving the grappling. She has been doing, the grappling with over in, she's been kind of going to California a little bit, working an alliance there because she knows that's her weakest point. And like you said, Aaron, she's not that rushed as well for the takedowns, and because she's a little bit slower and plotting, even when she is, it's not really crazy effective. And you're kind of telegraphing and chasing these takedowns. And I just don't know how they match up in terms of cardio wise. I don't really have a feel too much for that. I will say, I will be training with Molly's grappling coach on or one of her someone she's that has coached her in grappling the night before. So I'm gonna try and get some information. He's probably not gonna give me any. I think he might be in the corner. I'm gonna try to get some information out of him. If I do, I'll try to share it with some people, and they could do with it what they will. But um, I think this fight will go the distance. I don't know what that is. It's probably crazy juice. I don't think that Aaron's actually gonna submit her.
I don't think it's gonna be crazy juice. I think it's
Oh, it's
probably
minus 165. That's pretty good. I think Aaron's not gonna submit her. I think she will try. I don't think she's gonna get the
I mean,
submission.
she didn't submit Sarah Alpar, did
That's what
she?
I'm saying.
Right?
Like, I think it
Yeah.
Molly is fleet of foot enough, and she actually can fight from both orthodox and southpaw. That even when Aaron gets the takedown, because I think it's a win, I think it'll be deep enough into rounds where some of the risks will be mitigated in terms of the fight finishing.
Yeah. And, some people will probably point to the Jillian and say that she, choked her out. I believe Jillian is a lot better at doing what I was talking about earlier, and that's using her striking to blend the takedowns and, just an overall better MMA fighter than Aaron. And Aaron's got potential though.
I like
Yeah.
Aaron. I like
How
Aaron.
could you not?
Look, Aaron is from Northeast girl. I'm just not sure. I think she's trying to. She knows it's a good spot for her too. So I think she's gonna be look to extend the fight. I don't know. Maybe she'll go to the takedown a little too late in each of these rounds. But I'm not gonna bet goes the distance. Don't get me wrong. But I think if you bet goes the distance and Blanchfield by submission, you probably win money.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I condone that approach. Those typically aren't the best. But
Yeah, usually I don't do it at all. I don't do that at all. But I don't think it'll be a TKO. She's not gonna ground TKO her. She finishes her, it will be a
yeah,
submission on
she'll
the
go
ground.
out the neck. Yeah. Um, all right. So next fight is going to be 205, Dominic Reyes versus Ryan Spann. Dominic Reyes is the favorite here. Minus 210, Spam plus 180. What are your thoughts on this big boy matchup?
Two guys I don't like traditionally have not liked these guys. I should like Ryan Spann because he's a submission artist at like heavyweight, which you don't see that often. But the thing with Ryan Spann is he can't keep it together for very long. Like look at even when the only fight that he's gone out of the second round or out of the first round in his last five against Sam Alvey, bro, this guy was wilting. I mean, not wilting, but he looked Bambi legs a few times, and he almost lost that fight to Sam Alvey. So I kind of like, kind of definitely lean towards Dominic Reyes here, just because the style of striking that Dominic Reyes has. The reason that a guy like he had such a hard time with a guy like Jan Blachowicz, not only just because he had Nick Ronick as his main training partner, but the fact that as Dominic would circle away and try to get away and reset the exchanges, you know, Jan kept throwing that body kick, and he kept hitting him hard with it, and then he ended up starting, he was probably thinking about that a little bit, and then he started, maybe like, all right, let me sit down in the pocket and exchange with him because this guy's gonna keep kicking me, and then what happens? He gets his nose smashed, keeps getting hit with left hooks and big punches, and he ends up getting dropped and finished. But I think he's just proven consistency wise to just be a much better overall fighter than Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann is dangerous, but he's chinny. His defense is not that good. He's got like he's kind of low key got the glove sniff defense. Like his hands are just always really high, but he doesn't have a lot of nuance. And if you feint, you'll move his hands away from him and you'll hit him pretty hard. But if you're just striking with him, like he'll keep his hands tight. But any kind of mixing up the tempo, you'll clip him. And I don't think he's gonna get. I think he could get takedowns on Dominic Reyes though. That's why I'm not super anxious to bet Dom Reyes. But if the line does come down enough, maybe to like it would have to come down quite a bit just because this guy just did come back from a crazy knockout. But I actually think Dominic Reyes' grappling game has probably been improving. Like against Yuri, obviously it's Yuri, but what some of the movements that he had there, I thought were pretty solid. I didn't think that he looked bad as a grappler there. And I think training with Glover, I think, is probably helping him a lot. He definitely had to change up the camp. I don't know what he was doing. His head trainer was like his brother or something. So I think it's good for him. And I think he's in the B Ryan span. So TBD though. I might bet it, but TBD.
Yeah, not much conviction here with Reyes. Um, he hasn't won a fight against since he beat John Jones in early 2020. So uh, it's been 2.5 years since he won a fight, and he's taking a lot of damage too, right? He got knocked out pretty badly in both of those fights, so it's good he took some time off. But interested to see if he's actually, improved or he's just kind of maybe fallen off, and maybe that moment against John Jones was his, spotlight moment. It got robbed from him. Maybe he'll never be the same. And Span, I think he kind of sucks, but he's athletic and he's spastic and he can hurt you on the feet and he can submit you. So he can win fights at light heavyweight. So I think that this fight is likely going to end in under 1.5 rounds. So I think the under here is pretty good. I could just see Span being super hittable on the feet and his, just giving his chin on a silver platter. I think that's possible. And then Span just catching him with some shit and, finding a finish is likely. I also bet Span round one at plus 700 for a half a unit. You're telling me I can bet a half a unit on this shit? Just throw it out there and have a good chance at winning 3.5 units for, Span to, you know,
It's good.
I've picked.
You should put in Span submission too, because he's never knocked someone out outside of the first round.
Yeah, it's 8 to 1. Yeah, it's not bad. So I just think that, but he has hurt some guys with strikes. He almost knocked out
Oh,
John.
he's knocked out a bunch of guys in the first round. He's knocked out 5 guys in the
Yeah,
first. He just never finished anyone outside of the first, or knocked someone out outside of the first
yeah,
round.
yeah. I remember the Dev Clark one was like a guillotine or something. But yeah. So I just think it'll be a chaotic fight. The odds I think are pretty accurate, right? Reyes at 2/3. Um, but they got Reyes. Oh, okay. They corrected it. Reyes KO. I mean, or Reyes ITD is like minus 130, right? They think that it's over 55% likely that this guy finishes him. I mean, I think that's off. So, who knows though?
Someone's getting finished in this fight.
Someone,
Someone's
yeah,
getting
that would
finished.
be pretty shocked to see this one GTD as the odds reflect. Um, but anyway, moving on. Last fight on the prelims, we got lightweight division. Amazing matchup here. Renato Moicano taking on Brad Riddell, and Moicano is the favorite, minus 123. Riddell plus 103. Looking at all the fights, this whole card, I think this one might be getting the lead of anyone. Carla and Wei Lee hasn't really moved much at all, but this one is just kind of staying the same. Moicano minus 125, Riddell plus 100, plus 105. It's really not moving much. And I think people have a kind of consensus opinion about it. I mean, I'm sure there are some people out there that are confident, but that they're thinking that Riddell's got the edge on the feet. It's not an unwinnable fight for Moicano on the feet. He's a good striker of his own right, but you got to think that the kickboxer with the better power is going to be the one with the advantage on the feet. Also, the much more natural 155 or bigger guy. Um, but Moicano, when he gets the fight to the floor on top, I mean, he's a really good grappler when he's on top. He's not the strongest wrestler, but he can, body lock, get a takedown. He can hit some takedowns. He's not a helpless wrestler at all. So, for a fight that I think is, pretty in favor of Moicano once the fight hits the floor, I think that these odds are about right. He's got a chance to win the striking, and he's got a real good chance win the grappling when it gets there. So, and we like both these guys. Ozzy and I both like these guys, but I think the tempting side here is Riddell. But man, this guy's let me down so many times. He's been finished in round one. He typically just starts slow, right? He got dropped versus Dober. He gets hurt versus Turner. He got pushed against the cage for a long time against Mustafaev. Even Alex De Silva beat this guy in round one. So Brad's just not a guy who can be trusted in round one. You're probably gonna have to look for a live bet if you want to bet Brad here.
Yeah, man. And as you say that, obviously, Renato Moicano is the opposite. This guy usually starts strong. He's got, some first round finishes, right? And even against like a guy like Fazeev, like the guy he met fire with fire, he got knocked out, obviously. But I don't remember if he won the Jose Aldo fight in the first round, but or if he won the first round. But he's usually a strong starter. He goes for his takedowns. He like looks to implement his game. He looks to implement his strategy, which is what I like to see. And in this fight game, anyone can beat anyone on any given day. But you only heighten that by letting the other guy get on their script and kind of know what sequence he's going for, right? As opposed to you trying to dictate the pace, put him in uncomfortable positions, put him in spots where where their next movement is. And I feel like Brad Riddell is more of a counterpuncher, right? He kind of like he does do that, but he has to set it up. It takes him longer to set it up, and to do that, and you need to kind of be a little bit kind of trading with him or getting in the fight like that with him for it to be effective. And we saw that against Dober and Fazeev. It was working for him a bit, but it could also falter often. And this fight I've been kind of going back and forth with, but I think I lean on the Moicano side just because of the volume sometimes from Riddell being a bit lower. And especially if he needs to respect the takedown threat. Moicano could definitely get chinned at any point. Right, he took a beating versus RDA, so I'm not really that enthused to take him here, even though it could be a little bit of a bounce back spot. But because Brad is a slow starter and isn't a big volume guy either, I do think that Moicano could like underplay, like downplay the fact that he does get clipped with shots sometimes, but he's very aggressive as well. So I'm interested to see who's going to be um, better with going second in terms of timing strikes. If you see that Alex Hernandez fight, there are so multiple times where Alex kind of just stops his combination and Moicano's just right on him. Like you see in that finishing sequence, it's kind of like, Hernandez thinks the combination's over or, this guy's done and he's just hitting him with more shots, trying to get close to him, trying to get a clinch on him, to take him down. So I would lean the Moicano side, honestly, just because I think the diversity of the takedown attempts, the level that he is on the ground, he forces high danger, situations, right? He's not a lame prayer. He's looking to ground and pound. He's looking to take the back. He's looking to get to mount, and I really like to see that from a guy. So I think I'll lean towards him. I think I need closer to a pick 'em price or even money though to back him on a money line.
Yeah, that Hernandez finish was just sick, man. Just such a great back
Great, I
take.
loved it.
And
That was a great live bet fight too. They had Moicano was like either even or a dog, slight I don't know. It was a bad number they had there. I definitely picked up a good number there.
yeah. But
Moicano submission, bro. It's 450 on offshore. Like I think he can definitely submit Brad Riddell.
these guys, both, RDA, did a ton of damage on Moicano and Riddell, man. I mean, he's been significantly hurt in 3 fights in a row. Dober rocked him in the first round. Fiziev knocked him out in the third round. Turner stunned him early. I mean, there's a chance Brad's chin is getting close to done. I mean, long career, long kickboxing career, a lot of
Point.
wars. There's a chance that he just can't take a shot anymore. I mean, Moicano is not a big hitter, but it's a possibility that Riddell's chin is, on the decline big time.
Moicano had that 5 round fight, got that some experience off that. So hopefully the gain from going 5 rounds outweighs the damage amount that he took.
Yeah. And it's going to take us to the main card, 5 fight main card, great fights. First one, lightweight division. Dan Hooker taking on Claudio Puelles. Dan Hooker minus 141, Claudio Puelles 121. Highly anticipated fight here. A lot of action. Your turn to start this one off, Ozzy.
I love the fact that they put it as a main card opener. Um, and I love always identify like it's always great to see every week what the betting like the betters, the people in certain circles main event is. For this week, I mean, there's a few contenders, but it has to be
Got to be
Hooker
this.
versus
Yeah.
Puelles because has to be Hooker versus Puelles because literally everyone is basically like, yo, Hooker's free money. Okay, like, and man, Puelles, like, obviously he boned us 2 times in a row, right? Bad.
Bad.
And I don't regret. I regret the Guida bet a bit, maybe just the size, but I do not regret the Chris Gritzmacher bet at all, not one bit.
Maybe
Because this
maybe
guy
after
was
we learned he was training in his garage, I might have regretted
no,
it a little bit, but on tape,
I didn't regret it at all, bro. Because the fact this guy pulls guard in round 2 and he's just laying there, I don't know, it's crazy. But Gritzmacher's an idiot, dude. I mean, he was gonna win the 3rd round, and then he just gets knee barred. Just insane. But the thing that I see here is like, yeah, man, like you watch the tape, like Claudio Plus, he does not look that great. Like he throws a few decent strikes out there, but I feel this is a high variance, dude, in terms of you know I don't know, man. Like some of the stuff that he puts out there is kind of like I think it's kind of like bait. Like like I think he intentionally is kind of like looking worse to get people to engage with him a little bit more. Um, like in the that's like my little feeling I have maybe for the Gritzmacher fight because it's just so weird. He's just such a weird guy. He's been training obviously. Let me get to more relevant stuff. I think I'm talking too much BS. But look, he's at Killcliff FC. He's been there for like 2 years now, I think. Obviously the grappling game is there. His takedowns are not great. He does shoot head outside singles a little bit, which I did take some Hooker by sub at like 20-1 or something like that. Which I think a guillotine here could happen here. I think this fight could be where Hooker is kind of poking him at range. But the issue what I see is Hooker was very aggressive against Nazareth, but is he going to be as aggressive here when the fact that Claudio could shoot a takedown on him at any point? Maybe Hooker wants that, and he could launch those knees and all those good things. I'm not betting on Claudio-Puelles. I'm not even considering betting on Kowalkiewicz-Juarez. But I have not pulled the trigger on Dan Hooker, so I'm not in negative CLV like a lot of guys are. But I'm not like, running to the window either because, the guy, he's looked a little shop worn. I think the back-to-back fights, dude, between Felder and then fucking less than 4 months later fighting Poirier, that was bad career decisions by Eugene or whoever was advising him. That was bad stuff because this guy got beat up bad against Hooker or against Felder. I thought he lost that fight, but and then he just fights like a bum in Nazar Hakras, and and then he had the weight thing, abusing his body. I don't love it, dude. I don't love it, and he's older. Like I don't love it, so I'm gonna keep waiting. I will probably end up betting Hooker, but I'm gonna keep waiting. I think I would rather take some ITD here because I feel if we're right about Puelles, I think he's gonna be slowing down. He's gonna be doing the guard pull thing, and Dan Hooker's dangerous. He's if you look at that Ian N whistle fight, just starts elbowing the motherfucker while he has him in like 50-50. Like he's just a danger. Like he's just looking for he's looking for stuff. I think when he's dominating, and I think Claudio-Puelles, if we're right about him, he's a little bit of a wilter. He's a little bit of a quitter. Like he might be just laying on his back and doing stuff like that. And then Dan makes him stand up, and then he gets his hands on a Muay Thai clinch and just starts beating his ass. So we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I got some Peruvian family, and they fucking love Claudio-Puelles, Martian. They live here in Queens too. They love Claudio-Puelles. So I'm hoping they're gonna be super disappointed.
Don't hang out
And
with
my
them.
boys
Don't
cash
hang
big.
out with them on
No, I won't.
Saturday,
No, no, no,
like the
no, I
fucking
won't.
Ecuadorians.
That was a total setup. That was a total setup that day. But yeah, anything you see object like tape wise and stuff like that says Dan Hooker's his side. I'm not running to play it. I think it'll be competitive a bit. I don't know how aggressive Dan's gonna be. Is my issue. I wish it was like a fight at lightweight that he had last, as opposed to Arnold Allen thing. But what do you think? You're on Hooker, right?
Yeah, so I got I was what he was talking about, negative CLV. I took Dan Hooker, like, literally one of the worst ones. But, I'm gonna have to add more. I'm gonna have to add more, because this line, it's not making much sense to me. We've doubted Puelles, like you said, 2 times in a row. Clearly, we're missing something, but we're trusting fucking a recreational fighter in Gritzmacher. We're trust
They're
we're
grapplers,
trusting
and they are grapplers.
a 40-year-old, Guida. And now we finally have a capable body to really expose Puelles. And, um, the striking here is gonna be, very one-sided for Hooker, right? Puelles, he's got a body kick. He can throw a strike every now and then. He's not, like, terrible offensively, but he's just not layered in exchanges, and the longer this fight's in the feet, the more it favors Hooker. And, you gotta think that the fight being on the ground favors Puelles, but it's interesting because this guy might be more dangerous off his back than he is on top. Like he he really has like a women's MMA or like a old school MMA style to make guys off of his back with leg locks and knee bars. It's really not sustainable. And you might be able to win some fights outside of the top 15, 25, but we typically see these guys like hit a brick wall, like a Ryan Hall or something like that. Like at a certain point, he's gonna run into a guy like Taporia who's not gonna, fall for that guard playing bullshit, and he's just gonna, make easy work of him. And let's hope Dan Hooker's the guy to do that because, I mean, the takedowns of Puelles are not good. He doesn't come from a real wrestling background, and he shoots takedowns like he like squats into them. DC was making fun of him in one of his fights for how bad his takedown entries were, and that was the Gritzmacher fight. So. Uh, I don't think that, he's gonna be learning a whole lot more in the wrestling category. And even when he's on top, man, I just don't think he's that dangerous on top. He's dangerous off his back with the um just like, guard submissions, right? Leg locks, knee bars, omoplata sweeps. I can see that being a possibility here. But if Hooker is just smart enough to back away from top position, I mean, he some guys might be tempted, "Hey, I'm on top position. I can lay on top of this guy. I can lay in ground and pound." It's probably not a smart idea with Puelles because he's just saving up that energy for an explosion into a knee bar. If Hooker says, I'm not laying on top of this guy. I'm not doing top position. I'm standing him up and I'm making this fight stay on the feet. Hooker should butcher this guy and he should win, and he could potentially look like easy money. So, the thing is,
I
guys,
don't think so, bro. I made up my mind. I'm not betting on Dan
fuck
Hooker
you. No, you
on
have
the
to.
money
You
line.
have
I'm not
no,
doing the
you
money line.
fucking have to. You
No.
said, listen, guys.
Oh, he's not this guy. But if you're right, if we are right about Claudio's not making it 15 minutes, it's not happening.
Um, I could,
It's not
but
happening,
what
bro.
if,
How is it
but
gonna
what if I was
happen?
like, so like Hooker hurts him with the shot, then he pulls guard, and he's like, stand back up, and he's,
It's gonna, bro. That arena is gonna be insane on
that's
Saturday,
true,
bro.
but I don't know.
I'm telling you,
I don't think. I mean, it's a possibility that
Hooker.
Hooker,
I mean, the
but like
ITD is minus.
If Hooker finishes him, the money line is still going to look value. You know.
Sure, yeah. I'm just saying that ITD is like minus 180. Feel like Hooker. What's more likely? You think a Hooker finish or a Puelles decision?
Puelles decision. Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. No, that's not true. But I really do think Puelles decision 700 is not a bad line here.
It
I
work.
really think
I don't think
Puelles is
so
more
either.
likely to win by decision than sub. I think
Would I be surprised if like Puelles took him down and like holds a body triangle like Grant Dawson did? No,
yeah,
I
no.
wouldn't. Like, I haven't seen Hooker's defensive grappling that much. I do know some people that trained with Hooker at the end of last year, and they're like, yeah, he's like high purple. He's like purple belt, saying like, yeah, it's competitive role, like high purple belt. You haven't really seen him grapple in any of his, other than the Dustin Poirier fight, a bit. But
Well, he offensively grappled versus Hackprast.
oh, that's I'm saying defensive. I mean defense.
Oh no,
Dustin put him on his back a few times.
I think it says Dustin took him down once. I think there was another fight. Jason Knight out grappled him back in the day.
Was on his back though a few times against Dustin.
Um, all right, enough about that one though.
Saying I like
I'm gonna
I
have to add. I'm
maybe
gonna have
maybe
to
he's wrong.
add. I'm gonna have to be 3 units on Hooker here. I mean, if they're forcing my hand.
You're not gonna do any inside the distance. You're not gonna do
No,
any.
I'm keeping it money line.
Okay.
Keeping it P.
Alright.
Um, all right, next fight is a sad one. Bantamweight division, Frankie Edgar's retirement fight taking on Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez is the favorite minus 223, Frankie Edgar plus 188. So I've got a read on this fight. I did some tape here, and the thing is, Gutierrez is he's real good with his footwork, right? He knows where he's at in the cage at all times. And I think he's really good at retreating when his opponents come forward. He's very, he likes to circle. And what happens is when guys when he was fighting Kowalkiewicz and like Freitas, they in order to set up their takedowns, they really didn't have like a striking setup because he's so good at moving backwards. And anytime they threw strikes, he would get out of the way easily. So what they had to do was just kind of bum rush him. They had to, shoot a desperate takedown, get his back to the cage, and then they were able to maybe get their hands clasped and get him down briefly. But in this fight, I don't think Frankie is going to be able to time the open space takedowns. I think his takedowns are getting too slow and too telegraphed. And I think Gutierrez is going to be able to see them coming in open space. And if Edgar wants to take him down, he's going to have to do what Colares and De Freitas did, and that's drive him back to the cage, get his back to the fence, and get him down that way. But I just don't think Frankie's really got that physicality and that athleticism to drive Gutierrez back to the cage and get him pinned. And I don't think he's going to be quick enough to shoot the takedown in open space. I mean, the takedowns versus Vera in open space, um, they weren't good. The way he got Vera down kicks and him down, and that's a possibility here because Gutierrez does throw a ton of kicks. But if Gutierrez just alters the matchup a little bit and throws more hands, like 70% hands and 30% kicks instead of 50-50 like he typically does, I think that he's going to be outboxing Frankie. He's going to be much quicker. He's going to be elusive in the cage, that big cage. Frankie's going to have a hard time tracking him down there. And man, Frankie is just not like a good feeling from Frankie here. He 41, 42. He said he's retiring after this fight. He's been brutally knocked out 2 times in a row. He really hasn't won a fight in bantamweight. If we're being real, guys, the Munoz decision was pretty bad, and he really hasn't won a fight in bantamweight ever. And that means he hasn't won a fight since 2018. So 4.5 years ago is the last time he truthfully won a fight. So, man, I just don't like this fight for Frankie. I think the line is probably right. And I think Gutierrez will stick a move and output him to a decision.
Yeah, man. Frankie Edgar, one of my favorite fighters of all time. I will tell you, look, so I was watching MMA back in like '07. And literally, Frankie Edgar was my first, like when I was watching, and I like was like learning about like gambling odds a little bit. When like Anderson Silva was fighting Travis Lutter on that same card. And they were telling me like Frankie Edgar was like plus like 700 or something like that. And I was like, what? Obviously, I wasn't betting. This is like I'm like 15 or some shit. But I was like, what? And I'm like, nah, he's gonna win. I remember I was like telling a bunch of people, and he won against Tyson Griffin. It's my literal Frankie, my first ever underdog pick. Um,
Typology forms or some
and
shit.
yeah, I could pull it up, but I can't. Probably ever. Anyway, so I don't like this fight for him either because the fact is, what I see from Frankie is like just his movements and like what he's going for is very predictable. He does not have the variability with the feints and all these kinds of things like that that he used to have with the speed that he and like mixing in the leg kicks and this and that and the jab and throwing to the body like a body jab, then jab to the head and across and then working across into like a high crotch. Like he doesn't do that very well anymore. Or didn't versus Vera, obviously. Now he was coming off some surgery to his hip right before that fight, and it's been a decent amount of time since then. So I'm hoping, and I do think we're gonna see a better version than we saw against Vera. But I still think it's an uphill climb because Gutierrez is a good guy at reading people. He's that kind of striker. He's kind of like a more of like a heady striker where he's kind of like just looking to pot shot you. But when he is throwing the shots, they're kind of pretty well thought out, and they kind of just he's built it like his game. He's built his game a lot very well to his attributes and the techniques that he kind of like just naturally you know uh is good at. So I do think he's gonna be able to move his feet a lot. I'm interested to see though when does he's gonna have to set his feet at some point to exchange and throw with Frankie because I do think Frankie could with volume and if this guy's not gonna engage with him or is really worried about the wrestling, is not gonna sit down on punches. I could see Frankie winning some early rounds. So I mean the only way to bet Frankie is by decision. Could he finish him? I guess maybe like something could happen. Maybe like a choke or a rear naked choke, like if this guy completely shuts down like he did against Durden. But I think it's gonna probably end up bad for Frankie. I don't like his durability and some of these things. But the guy's all in. I like it when guys are all in. He's been training his wrestling a lot with Sebastian Rivera, who's like a world championship level wrestler. Took I think fifth in the world championships this year, same size as him. So I think he's gonna come out and improve. He's gonna look better, I think, than he did in the Vera fight. But ultimately, I don't think it will be enough. Is there value on the line though? I like I said, I would only that decision line, I like it. 300, 325, I think is solid. If we get above the 200 number for the money line, I think doing a little play on that is I think okay and warranted. Or you could just play the over because Frankie, at the end of the day, I don't think I don't think Gutierrez is, crazy likely to knock him out just because the power that he does not have in the hands. But but I do think Frankie is shot, super shot.
Yep.
But I do, I still think because of the tendencies and how lethargic and kind of like not aggressive sometimes Gutierrez is and not intense that Frankie could win a decision here.
Yeah, it's still got to be dog or pass, but I don't like the chances. Uh, Banger of a fight next. Another lightweight fight. Dustin Poirier taking on Michael Chandler. The odds for this one have Poirier minus 225, Chandler plus 190. Ozzy, I know you're dying to talk about this one. Let's hear it.
Love this fight. Fight I've definitely looked forward to or I've thought about, when they were in opposite promotions and finally we get it here. I just think that this line is insane. This line is just crazy to me because if you're kind of just think about the meta of just MMA and in the lightweight division. Like how many of these guys at the top level really cover a price tag like Dustin Poirier's in a 3 rounder? And a lot of I think the slights on Michael Chandler are just unwarranted. A ton of them. Like, oh, it's a gasser. Oh, he's super chinny, and all these. This guy is an elite, top tier fighter. Crazy power. Great wrestling. His top game is underrated. His conditioning, I feel, is underrated. Been multiple times 5 rounds. Obviously, against Gaethje, I think it was less him being super, super tired and, the mix of one, him going ham in the first round, and two, getting calf kicked to oblivion, and having to be worried about that and the anxiety and stress about that. But he's been at MSG before, been in a big fight before, right? Same kind of billing as this one. And I think this is a good time for him to fight Dustin Poirier. Looking at Dustin's last fight against Oliveira, yeah, he landed some great punches in the first round, rocked, Oliveira a bunch of times. But Oliveira, man, he wasn't moving around too much there. I think he was letting Dustin line up that left hand way too much. And then, from there, Dustin gassed. Like, people talk about how, oh, Chandler, the first round was only good and it was downhill from there against Gaethje. Dustin gassed against, Charles Oliveira. 1 minute into that, second round, he just does a forward roll to the ground and just doesn't do anything. And you're thinking, okay, maybe he's gonna come back in round three. He's just, he's smart. He doesn't want to give up a finish. No, he just comes out third round. He's backing up and he throws one punch and Oliveira's on his back right away. And this guy doesn't even fight it that much. He's got his hands on the ground. It's just, I don't think it's gonna be hard for Michael to find this guy with the hands. I think Michael's gonna be able to use that right kick of his pretty well. You saw he punted, Tony's face into heaven. I think he's going to be able to throw that front kick just like Oliveira did. Obviously he's not the great kicker, but it's a tool that he's going to be able to easily use. Right body kicks, and then that right hand, like Dustin Poirier's defense is that Philly shell stuff, and you know what that does not lead to good takedown defense when your elbows are above your shoulders to block a punch coming in. And the guy's able to high crotch you or dive on a single leg or just tackle you to the fence. Dustin's never really shown great fence wrestling. He digs underhooks, but he doesn't really circle off too much. And I don't think that Mike's gonna have a hard time having success there. And it's gonna be whether Dustin could claw the fight back. I think in the later rounds, and and start to find Michael's chin. But another thing is Dustin, I think, is overrated as a little bit as a power puncher. Like, most of his KOs are very cumulative, where he's landing multiple strikes and to really put a guy out. Whereas opposed to Michael Chandler, some of the shots, like that left hook he got hit with Oliveira was a fucking monster shot. That uppercut he got dropped with by or by Justin Gaethje, monster shot. Like, I don't know if Dustin's really gonna line up those strikes on him similar to that. Like, he got dropped by Tony real quick, got right back up, and I don't think he was actually that hurt. And I think those Conor McGregor wins has people thinking that, one, he's Dustin's super durable just because he won, against a guy that hits as hard as Conor. And they're just overrated wins. They're not that relevant here. And I think Michael Chandler's gonna win this fight. So I'm probably gonna be multiple units on him, but I do want to save a little bit just because I do think there could be some volatility with the fight. I think that Chandler's gonna get off to a good start, but Dustin could get off to a good start, just like that last fight happened, and Chandler has to come back, which I think he can do, and I'll probably get a really, really good price on it. So I'm gonna be on Chandler money line here for sure. Maybe some inside the distance isn't that good. Like, it's plus 235. Like, for that, like, why would you do that? Like, I think Chandler, you'll touch on this decision, crazy line. But overall, the dynamics of this fight does not lead to Dustin Poirier beating Michael Chandler 70% of the time in a 3-round fight. Simple as I could put it.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with most of that. I mean, I like Poirier better of the two, and I think I would prefer to him to win the fight, but the odds I do think are off, and they're off by probably a good amount. Like, I feel like these odds are factoring in that Chandler's not going to wrestle at all. That's the only way I can get to Poirier minus 225. Um, it's like the line is indicating that Chandler's having like a no takedown clause to this fight, which I really don't think is the case. Uh, Chandler does like kind of standing and banging and maybe entertaining the fans a little bit too much, but the guy is no dummy. I mean, he knows when. Actually, the guy is pretty dumb, but anyway, in terms of in the midst of the fight, I don't think he's that dumb. You saw versus Tony Ferguson when Ferguson was having a little success touching on strikes. Michael Chandler hit a double leg that absolutely sent Ferguson flying through the air. I mean, he just easily double legged him and just took him off his feet. And Ferguson's a particularly terrible defensive wrestler, but I think the same is in play here for Poirier. I think that Chandler, getting in on his hips, I think he's gonna put Poirier down. And the striking definitely favors Poirier here, but even if it's pure striking, a pure kickboxing type of fight, I'm not sure Poirier justifies 70% there either. I think more like, 60 to 65% is accurate because, Chandler's got good boxing. He hits hard. If if he mixed in a little bit more body punching, I think he would be really lethal. Like he sometimes throws the straight right hand to the body. If he, incorporated some left hooks to the body, man, he would be real, real good. Um, not that he's not already good, but he would be a lot more effective if he mixed in some body punching zone because he's, that shorter frame and sometimes he's kind of a little bit undersized for the weight class in terms of like height and length. So if he dug to the body more, he could make up that deficit a lot easier. So I just think that it's a close fight on the feet. It's a definite lean to Poirier. The cardio advantage is I think a bit up in the air here. We've seen both of these guys slow down late in fights, and I think Poirier a big distinction is that when he's striking with another guy, he can go to war all day. He can have good attrition. He can build into the fight. He has good cardio late. But when you start grappling him and you start taking him down, he starts fading fast, and I think he kind of loses a little bit of confidence in himself when he starts getting out grappled. So if he loses, the first round here, getting taken down, I'm not sure he's coming back from that. So Chandler is the money line side. Chandler decision at 7-1, actually plus 750 on DraftKings. Crazy line. I bet that already. And yeah, I mean,
This line
amazing.
doesn't make any sense, bro. Go down the list at lightweight. Who is Dustin Poirier minus 230 against? Dober, maybe? Like, telling me Michael Chandler is just a rated. That's the thing. I kind of go off like how I'm rating these guys against each other, and then you have to kind of look at the broader context. Like, there's just how do you get to Dustin over 70% to provide value? Just doesn't make any sense.
Well, he
Like,
he is at to be fair, I think he's at like 68 right now, right? Minus 230, 225.
yeah, I mean, 233 is 70%. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe I'm all
oh,
right,
it's
but he
60.
needs to be a
So yeah, you're right.
so you need to be, you need to be 70% to cover. It just doesn't make any sense, dude. Because like I said, Dustin, like some of the shot selection that he has, like he's not really looking to counter a lot of times. Like even against Oliveira, there was plenty of times Oliveira pushes his dude back, and Dustin's kind of like, just kind of, rolling with the punches, kind of like seeing Dan Hooker too. He's kind of just seeing what's coming. Dude, that's suicide against Michael Chandler. If you're letting Michael Chandler tee off on you like that, he's gonna do it, and then he's gonna take you down. So is Dustin gonna? You're telling me Dustin's gonna be able to control the range and the distance and the pace? I just against a guy like Michael Chandler with as much experience as he as well has, I just don't see it.
Um, yeah, and but money's coming in on Poirier, man. I mean, it might keep pouring in, so you
It
might as
is.
well wait on Chandler
Keep
money line
going.
at this point.
I
Um,
will, yeah.
that's
How bad could a Chandler money line bet be, bro? Come on, like this is doesn't make sense, dude. It's just really that line to me, fishy, strange line.
yeah,
I don't know, but I don't. So I haven't heard anyone tell me betting on Dustin other than Capper, and even he was, jumped off the boat as soon as I told him a piece of my mind
yeah. And the
already
line moved a
aborted.
lot since he bet it too. So, all right, title fight time. Women's strawweight division. Carla Esparza, the champion, the queen, right now taking on the challenger, former champion Weili Zhang in the main event here. The line this one, Zhang minus 335, Carlos Esparza plus 275. Not that excited about this one. I thought, Wei Li looked like a motherfucker in her last fight. She ragdolled Joanna in there. Combination of Joanna looking old and Zhang just being, a physical force, man. She's good. She's good in chaos, and that's what I took away from that fight is when the fight gets crazy and there's variance involved and like she hits a takedown out of nowhere, that shit favors Zhang because she's so athletic and opportunistic that she can just capitalize on those moments, not in the same way I think Carla can. And it's a rather simple fight to break down. I mean, if Carla doesn't get takedowns, she's fucked. That's, to put it simply, I'm not sure anybody else thinks differently. Does anybody in the world think that if Carla can win this fight without takedowns? Because I don't think so. Um, do you think so, Ozzy?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So she's takedowns or bust, and she is one of the best wrestlers, one of the best grapplers in women's MMA history. But she's getting deep into her career here. And the last fight that we saw from her, just a head scratcher performance. I mean, she walked away with the split decision victory. Uh, I guess she was value. I don't know. I'm not rewatching that fight. Listen, it's a good litmus test. If anybody who you're talking fights with this week, or is a capper or a better, if they say they rewatch that fight, bro, put them on a list, because there is nothing. There's not a single thing that can be gained from watching that fight. It's irrelevant.
I gained something. I gained
What it
something.
was?
You know what I gained? A surprise. Like, I felt Rose took her down kind of easy when she tried. It's like, would it be that crazy for
Not at all.
Zhang to get on top
Not
of
at
Carla?
all.
Like, no, right?
Zhang can take her down. Yeah, I don't even remember that shit. Rose took her down. So,
The 5th round, she took her
but
down
you,
super
Ozzy,
easy.
be honest,
Super
you
easy.
were probably mashing that fast forward button through that fight.
I don't watch. What do you mean? I watch it live. Unfortunately.
Um, So, I still think Carla's the side, though. I mean, listen, guys, Zhang on her back in rounds 4 and 5 versus Rose, atrocious. When she's in open space, if she's in the center of the cage, she has no idea how to get off of her back. No idea. And with her, possibly slowing down as well, Carla has some 5-round experience, 5 rounds in her last fight. Didn't expend a whole lot of energy, but I mean, this Carla, one takedown and Zhang could be flat on her back for 4 or 5 minutes. She could win a round off a takedown. So the fact that one takedown could be a round, that means that Esparza is the side. And I think you got to be a little light though on it. I think you got to go. I wouldn't honestly go more than a unit or a unit and a half. I think I'm only going to be going like a half or a quarter of a unit on Esparza, a 3/4 of a unit, because, man, the physicality here is just the difference is, I mean, Carla is kind of frail, a frail, weak lady, and Zhang is on all of China's finest supplements. And I don't know, man. I think it's probably Zhang's time to get her belt back. But just the fact that a challenger is minus, 300 in the spot, and with such a glaring deficiency in Esparza's biggest strength, a bit wild. So go Carla, but I fully expect Zhang to win.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I'm not betting. I decided this double again. I'm not betting on Carla because the issue is like, and I was telling you this before. It's like how tentative she was against Rose. Not a good look. And how much of a crazy starter Zhang is in matching up with that is not great. And even if Carla is like more aggressive here, like I feel like Zhang, if at any point, let's say early, Carla, has success pushing her back, maybe grabs a leg, pushes her into the fence. If fucking Zhang is able to just, do, do what she's gonna be able to win in the clinch early. Is the point that I'm trying to make. And I think for Carla, it's gonna have to be, maybe she gets a takedown, maybe a takedown or two, first, second, round. And it's gonna have to be the fact that Jean gets so tired or has to get tired from trying to get up and trying to get it back or whatever it is, that Carla could, ends up in like the third or fourth round getting a takedown where she makes, a good amount of headway and, is able to get position, start grounding, pounding her, hitting her, punching her, elbowing her, going for submissions maybe. I mean, she has no submissions, but go for submissions a little bit. But I think Zhang's gonna knock her out at some point. Maybe like a clinch, starting to clinch, maybe an uppercut, something like that. Because just Carla, she kind of like turns away from some of these shots sometimes. And a few of her wins, like I mean, if you remember the Marina win, like it's kind of girls making dumb mistakes with the grappling. But I will say, when you're such a better grappler than your opponent, you let them do stuff that you're going to be able to escape and get on top of them, which might be something that happens with Carla and could be something like the same similar thing with like John going for Rose's back and Rose using it to get on top. Smart grapplers they do that and then and then you're like fuck, like I shouldn't have gone for that submission or that position or whatever it is.
I see what you
But
mean.
I just
Yeah.
I just don't believe in Carlo though. At the end of the day, beating Zhang over a 25-minute fight Same thing that I was saying, I think, with the Aaron fight. At what point do you get these takedowns, and especially in these female fights as well? I think is very important. And I don't think Zhang is being taken down super early in any of these rounds. And again, the tentativeness that this girl showed, Carla, in the Rose fight, I just didn't like it. Like I just hated it. So you're telling me she's gonna be like super confident to get in that kitchen with Weili Zhang and smell some of that Chinese food? I don't think so. So Weili Zhang will get the belt back, I believe.
And the crowd is way behind Wei Li here, for what
And
it's worth too.
Carla's pretty stupid for thinking that people wouldn't hate her for that last fight. That fight was
We
fucking
don't hate her.
stupid.
Plus 185. Cash it.
I don't hate her, but a lot of people do. So
Uh,
they don't, not they hate her. It's just they're not excited to see her. They're like, come on,
right. How
this
could you
girl
be?
again.
Um, what they're probably really dying to see is the documentary about Rose Namajunas' tough upbringing, coming out on Fight Pass real soon. All right, main event time. We're going along on the podcast, but we got good fights. But guys, you guys know this. The fight nights we're gonna be short and sweet. When it's pay-per-views and they're good matchups, we're gonna dive into these fights because they deserve to be talked about and they're much more intriguing than the average fight night. So, main event time, brand new matchup in MMA here. We got Alex Pereira, the challenger, taking on Israel Adesanya, the reigning champion. Big history between these two guys. Israel Adesanya minus 205. Alex Pereira plus 175. So the backstory here, well documented. These two fought in kickboxing times. The first fight was a decision win for Pereira, and the second fight was a third round knockout for Pereira. 2-0 for Pereira doesn't really tell the full story because the first fight was a very competitive fight, and I believe majority of people thought Israel Adesanya won that fight. And then the third fight, Israel Adesanya was winning the first two rounds of that fight before eventually getting caught with a big punch and knocked out in the third round there. But those are big gloves. Those are a long time ago. It's a lot of muscle mass ago for Alex Pereira. I think he looks absolutely massive now compared to how he did. I don't know if it's the camera angles because they're filming from far away and they don't have a good close up. Maybe it was probably a lower weight class as well for Pereira, but he looks like he's gained like 30 pounds of muscle since that fight. So um I believe it's your turn to start this one off after the little backstory there. What are you thinking about this matchup?
Really interesting fight. I've literally watched, I think, Pereira versus Strickland 20 times, I think I said, because I just think it's super interesting. And, you kind of have to go off of a lot of, what you have on the guy. And I was intrigued the fact that, he kind of pot shotted, Strickland a little bit, moved his feet a lot through like 45 strikes and, in half a round there. And kind of the shot selection was just, investing in the leg kicks, throwing jabs, to the body, and then touching Sean Strickland, jabbing with him sometimes. So, I already bet some Izzy. I got Izzy, some early lines here. And I think he's gonna win the fight. But like as it's gotten closer, I've been a little bit more not just a little bit less confident, just thinking of like how Izzy's gonna play it because I think if he jabs with Pereira, I think he'll have success because I feel like sometimes some of the jabs that Pereira is throwing out, like he doesn't really care about them because he just wants to land left hooks and right hands. So I don't think they're very sharp. I don't think sometimes they're I think someone like Izzy's caliber, let's just say, is going to be able to kind of ignore them a lot, or quickly. So, and land his own jab and land his own strikes, like he's been touching, like he touched Jared a lot. But overall on the feet, I think it's kind of close, here in terms of, early on. But I think Izzy has a big advantage as this fight goes into the later rounds, just because I think he's going to have a lot of movement here. And I think he's going to get Pereira to fight a little bit of a higher pace in terms of the movement of kind of like getting towards them and getting close to him and trying to threaten and take the belt from the champion. So I think Izzy's going to be ahead on that on the tactics of the fight, and then he just got to execute. Obviously, he knows the strikes that he has to look out for. I would look out for the kicks too of Pereira going to the body heavily and investing in that. I think that's something that you didn't see in the Sean Strickland fight, but I think you will see with a guy with a long torso and a southpaw stance like Izzy is in often. So I look out for that. I would look out for if these guys gonna hook with each other, right? You saw the Whitaker fight when those guys hooked with each other. Izzy was able to, pull the shoulder back, close the door, stay tight, land his left hook and finish him there. But Pereira obviously, with that leaping left hook, he's definitely got to watch out for it, and then watch out for the counter left hook as well. So I'm super interested. I think that clinch game is interesting here as well. Pereira, I thought, looked offensively solid enough against Bruno Silva. Maybe defensively against a guy the caliber of Izzy, it's probably not the best idea to hang out there all too much. But I think we will see some clinch fighting here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Alex actually look to like for like a trip or like something like that, maybe just because he is a bigger man, depending on how he feels in there, with him, just like an off balancing kind of thing, maybe like a trip to like, throw more strikes out and make the fight even more even a little bit even more high paced. But I think Izzy's in the pot shot a bit, throw these straight punches, straight kicks down the middle, end up tiring out Pereira a little bit, and then start kind of like, pulling ahead in the third and fourth rounds. And I do think a finish here is there is potential for it, but I wouldn't want to bet on the under, honestly, just because, I think Izzy's gonna win. But Izzy KO is a little attractive, but in his recent run is kind of making me cool on that. So I'm gonna think about it more. So plenty of time to fight time. Very interesting fight. But what do you think about it? So I got Izzy to win for sure. So
Yeah, I got Izzy as well. Pretty big bet on one of the bigger bets of the year. I think 3 units, minus 164. The difference in MMA experience I think is really huge here, and I think a big part of it comes down to the footwork of MMA, and it's just going to be fought at a completely different pace and range as the kickboxing fights, and the kickboxing fights just favor Pereira. It's a significantly smaller ring, compared to the big cage in the UFC. I mean, the square footage is honestly probably 50% bigger in the UFC cage. So that's going to be huge. And especially when you just consider the lack of experience Pereira has in MMA, and I think that's going to be big here because if Adesanya is striking and retreating and doing a lot of lateral movements, I just think Pereira is going to have a hard time tracking him down. He doesn't have proven like MMA footwork for tracking guys down. A lot of the fighters he's fought in MMA so far have been pretty willing to engage with him at striking range and kind of come forward to him and just give him a striking fight. And Izzy's going to be much more tactical, where he's going to come into range, he's going to hit him with some shots, and he's going to get out of range. And I just think he's going to do really well at limiting pocket exchanges here. He's going to be leg kicking Pereira. Uh, and I just think that I think, Pereira's just gonna be kinda playing catch up the entire time. I think that the speed advantage is on Israel's side. Footwork, MMA experience in 5-round fights is big. Pereira did look good cardio-wise in his 1 3-round decision against, Bruno Silva. But, man, I think, even that fight, the striking exchanges in that fight, I don't think were that one-sided as people expected. They did get pretty one-sided late in the fight, but I just think he also doesn't have that touch of death power that some guys think he does. When Sean Strickland is walking directly to him with his hands down and just giving him his chin on a silver platter, sure he's able to clip guys and hurt him, but he landed some flush shots on Bruno Silva and wasn't phasing him that badly. And Israel's eating some of his big punches as well. And the last thing I'll say is that the glove difference here is that if you watch their fights in kickboxing, in terms of their boxing defense, Pereira is much more. He has a high guard, right? He uses those big gloves to guard the head, and he uses the high guard, and he shells up, and that's effective when you have those 10-ounce gloves on. But with the 4-ounce gloves, it's going to be a whole lot different. And the way that Adesanya defends punches is he uses a lot more of his upper body movement, and he leans away from punches, and he slips and dips under punches a lot more, and he's able to avoid the punches with upper body movement instead of relying on those gloves, that guard to block the punches. So I think that could be big here. And the straight punches with the small gloves of Adesanya could be getting through, and should have steady success here versus Pereira. But it's an amazing matchup. It's a long time coming. This was the UFC's plan all along, bringing Pereira in. They built him in a slow but steady way. Obviously, they gave him a massive step up in competition in Sean Strickland, and he passed with flying colors as well as you could. Barely ate a shot, knocked him out in the first round, and they got their title fight. And it's an amazing title fight, a good story behind it. But I think this final fight between them in MMA is pretty heavily in favor of Adesanya here. Looking to see how it plays out and seeing if I'm
Will
wrong.
they fight again? Will they fight again, Martian?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
This is the last one.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know if Pereira will stick around in like MMA that much longer. The guy's
I love to see Pereira at 205.
I think doesn't Pereira been kickboxing for like 10, 15 years? Like these guys,
Yeah, but he got to get that money.
he's
He's got to get that money, Martian.
he's
These guys
35.
made of mahogany. You talking about 35, bro? You know how long mahogany stays good for? Don't.
It
Actually don't.
it's a I don't know much about it. Yeah, you're gonna have to teach me
Don't know
about
shit about
the
mahogany.
wood the wood.
Know shit about
Ozzy
mahogany.
knows his way around wood pretty well.
Hell yeah.
All right, that's enough.
Hardwood
That's enough
floors all
about this
day.
card. Best bet parlay time. I know what yours is gonna be. Let me hear you say it.
Good Chandler.
Michael Chandler plus 190. But mine, it's gonna have to be the Hooker, the Daniel Hooker
Oh
at
god.
minus 141. And listen, if we're
Oh
talking
lord.
best bet, the one I'm most confident in, the one I have the most units on at the current
The
price.
most value on it, Martian.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
-1.
I would have said
All
maybe
right, fuck it, let's
Adesanya, but I
go.
bet him minus 164. He's all the way down to 210. There's no value there.
Feel
Um,
you.
and I
See, look, I'm giving Michael Chandler. Look, I think Michael Chandler's gonna win the fight. Do I
yeah.
make him the favorite? Not. But I think there's much. I feel there's more minus 400 upside in Michael Chandler than there is on Dustin Poirier's side.
Yeah.
I think
It's close.
that's how I
But,
feel.
yeah, I have guys, like, I'm gonna probably bet a unit on, like Arce and Turman. I like those prices, but the one
Yes,
I
I like
think to
them
have
too.
the best value is Daniel Hooker, minus 141, plus 190, comes out to plus 396 on BetOnline.
Need this one. Let's go. Come on.
396. This is key. This is
Come
key.
on, boys.
I'm gonna have a lot
Well,
I'm gonna have a lot of action on this card. I'm gonna have probably, like, so.
my guy knocked out your guy. Hopefully, they knock out their other guys Saturday night.
Ooh. Oh, that's right, yeah. Um I was confused for a second there. But that's enough. The long podcast, about an hour 45. Thank you all for listening. Hope you all got some good information. And any closing thoughts, Ozzy?
Oh, not at all. Let's get it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, MSG this Saturday. Great card top to bottom. Hope you all enjoy the fights. Thank you all for listening. Hope you all win some bets. And we'll see you before next week's UFC card. Peace out, everyone.